Good morning. Today I, Viraj Joshi, will be presenting my final thesis, Waste a Resource, an alternative approach to waste management in Mumbai. The presentation will cover these 10 points starting from introduction, my concern, research and learnings, the conclusion, the role of the architect, transact selection analysis, zooming into site analysis, design and detailing, and finally reimagining the city. As the contemporary city started coming up, the linear process of waste management became very evident. Nobody wanted the waste in their backyards and homes, so it started being sent to the landfills situated at the outskirts or edges of the cities. Moreover, if we consider organic waste, it is quite amusing that even though everyone knows about the value of this type of waste, it is still part of the centralized system. We start off by asking, why is there a huge waste crisis in contemporary cities? As cities evolved, the waste started being pushed outside the city limits. Post industrialization, this problem worsened, giving birth to the landfills that negatively affected the cities, but people residing in the inner areas never realized the crisis. India as a country today majorly generates organic waste, hence coming under one of the sustainable countries in terms of consumption, but today the dirtiest cities in the world are in India. So what will happen if this continues? So the concern emerged with respect to the organic waste that exists in the city as to why is the centralized process of organic waste still persistent in the contemporary city, and what are the practical issues faced that do not allow a change in the existing approach. And the intent is to develop an alternative approach to waste management at the ward level of the city and to reimagine the city and its waste using this alternative approach. Diving into the current condition of waste in Mumbai, the selected city for study, and the selected ward, T ward, which lies in the northeastern part of the city. For the research, the urban area of the ward is delayered using land use as a lens. Everyone today knows about the value of organic waste and how to convert it to a resource like compost. But this simple process has various hurdles to it. To understand what practical issues are faced by the people, an ethnographic survey is conducted in urban typologies in each land use. Informants are surveyed to gain generic and specific insights about organic waste in their typology. For the formal residential land use, these were the questions for the generic insight, like the types of waste, number of people living, different types of users, etc. And these for the specific insights, like does every household segregate waste? Can it be used to convert to compost? Is your building doing it? If not, why? The responses from generic insight are stated here and the specific insight in this manner. The typologies with informants, a general observation, a common pool of responses. The arrows depict the response from each informant, by which we understand the root cause for not practicing composting. Along with an amalgamation of inferences from the responses, lots of spaces were visible in the typologies, especially unused, which became key inferences. The broader inferences categorize the root causes under broader aspects like lack of space to set up came under spatial aspect and low economic capacity came under economic aspect. A similar approach was done to every land use, with the questions for specific insights and generic insights changing for each land use and the different evident types of spaces in each. Each response was interesting and was giving a glimpse about the ground realities. Now the interesting part is some stakeholders in the ward and the city managed to overcome these root causes and find the value in their day-to-day organic waste. From composting pits, urban gardens to vermicomposting, different kinds of programs were observed, and not only that, the various funding methods and social strategies were also revealed in conversations with various key actors with respect to waste in the city. Finally, a key inventory is prepared, which is a compilation of all the various inferences from the survey. With this, we conclude what is wrong with the existing approach and what is to be expected of the alternative approach. Decentralizing and centralizing waste such that all the waste is processed in the ward itself, engaging all types of stakeholders for a collective approach, segregation of waste along with common root causes must be addressed. The aim is not just to process waste, but to integrate the idea of community participation. As a first step to alternative approach, decentralization as a solution is looked at but not in isolation. A combined system of centralization and decentralization is imagined in the ward that aims to process all the organic waste in these three levels of spaces, the typology level, the neighborhood level and the ward level, thus creating a condition where no waste leaves the ward. Now, as discussed, waste is a topic dealt with various fields of study from environmentalism to even psychology, but architecture is necessary not just to break the linear process of waste management, but to also bring the decentralized process to the eyes of the citizens, to make them aware of their waste. So the architectural idea aims to firstly make place for the waste infrastructure programs by using the types of unused spaces from the inventory. Then the architect's job is to decide design strategies for combining community participation programs with waste infrastructure, especially segregation of waste in these decentralized levels of spaces. And finally, to imagine a connected series of architectural landmarks in the city, segregating waste, engaging the community, and bringing the process of segregation to the eyes of the citizens, creating a new urban realm. Different case studies are looked at to see how architects have used these design strategies. So as a conclusion, the programming strategy looks at placemaking, the types of waste infrastructure programs, the different community engaging programs, and finally, the different design strategies that result in various architectural combinations for the city. The architecture wishes to go beyond by also hybridizing this to create more number of possibilities. An idea of the reimagined city with the connected architectural landmarks. To demonstrate the decentralization, a transect is chosen in the ward and certain points in the ward are selected that can act as centralization spots. The transect has the SGN Forest Zone, the Johnson & Johnson building, and the Mulund Bus Depot. Now, the transect is analyzed with respect to the existing types of green covers to look for vacant open spaces. Then an ownership and reservation analysis is done. Then a tailored land use map is prepared, overlaying the land use data with typologies that have space and do not have space for composting. An alternative public realm is imagined that connects these vacant spaces with appropriate reservations. And four primary hubs are identified in the transect to stitch all the smaller interventions in between. Starting from the left, the informal settlements give rise to the community residential hub, the Johnson & Johnson show us the commercial hub, the private open space reserved for a school give us the educational hub, and finally, connecting the open spaces show us the open space hub. From the survey, it is evident that the condition of informal settlements was the poorest, as even the municipal corporation tends to ignore the waste management in these areas. Some of the photos of settlements of Hanuman Pada. Photos of site which is a vacant plot. The existing site condition shows us that the ground is primarily used for throwing waste and parking of rickshaws. There is a derelict BMC park towards the right of the site. A site analysis is done to further understand the vacant plot before beginning the design process. Population, amount of waste, organic waste generated, land use, sun, wind, rainwater, contours, access, and existing tree cover are understood. Now a series of design diagrams are made starting from existing site. The zoning of the built should be done in the periphery as the existing ground is used by community sometimes for recreational activities. Then two bars are placed, but since they have no relationship with the landscape behind, the bar is split in blocks, and then the blocks are moved to the corners. After realizing that the blocks just act as standalone pieces, the final diagram is chosen to be an experiential arrangement of the programs where the existing ground is also captured and the intervention connects well with the landscape. Next, programming strategy is decided by envisioned movement of users. Being the starting point of the public realm, the public moves from the SGNP park and enters the site. Since the road is towards the right hand side, the vehicular access for waste can be accommodated there. The community entrance is obviously going to be the closest, and finally, this is the bottom right where the waste is envisioned to be used as a resource. Hence, the programs are decided keeping in mind the movement, a cafe, the outdoor public seating, waste segregation facility, an organic garden for vegetables, existing BMC park, workshop and training center with an indoor games room, and an Anganwadi for the community. An architectural site response strategy is done to finalize the form. At some points, the rich landscape behind is brought into the site, whereas other points it connects to the public realm to the landscape. The entire internal periphery is primarily designed as seating facing towards the ground to enable a rich public space, and the zone between the landscape and the seating is the built. The project also reactivates the BMC park, and the idea is to give equal importance to public spaces in the intervention. So the ground floor is in accordance to the site response. Minimal built form with abundance of public spaces for the community, public of urban realm, and waste workers is the idea of the landmark. The movement of each user is thought of while designing. The resting spaces, interaction spaces, restrooms, and main programs with the view of the Maidan are something that the design aimed to accommodate. The plan of the project is further divided in three parts. To zoom in further, the first part plan shows the cafe, the seating, and the segregation facility. The terrace having the garden and solar panels. The outdoor seating having a small informal amphitheater for passing waste workers and public, and the manual segregation happening while having a view of the landscape. The second part plan shows the organic garden. Here the segregated wet waste forms compost and is used to grow vegetables by the community. The commoning activity accommodates space for growing food, sitting and relaxing as well. A space for the temporary market is also allocated to sell the grown vegetables back to the community. The third part plan shows the Anganwadi and the indoor games room and workshop. The section is cut through the small covered community space in front of the Anganwadi and cuts through the seating around the word tree where old people of the community can gather to tell about their life tales to young ones. In our cities, there is a lot of waste lying around. Some can be very useful and some can be reused to build spaces. So the idea for construction strategy is to build public spaces and infrastructure for processing organic waste by using this useful inorganic waste. A mapping of inorganic waste on site is done to filter out the useful. Now, each part of the project is detailed out to demonstrate the reusing of waste in urban structures. This can be implemented anywhere throughout the city. Starting with the cafe, the exploded axonometric shows the different elements that are reused by reclaiming and repairing or treating these materials. At 8 am, the public from SGN Forest comes for some refreshments at the cafe. The wall section shows the filler slab detail which saves the amount of concrete, and the filler units can also be PET bottles fit in plywood frames or e-waste like keyboard. At 4 p.m., the waste worker comes for a quick cup of coffee before going back to segregate the next batch of waste. The wall section shows the reused bars, rebars that can be used for a chhajja, that is blocking the direct south sunlight, and the PET air cooling system that uses Venturi effect to cool the interior spaces. Finally, the section shows the plastic bottles and jars bird feeder that is kept in the landscape area, and the reused painting cans that are used to plant vegetables. Grey water of the kitchen is reused to water the landscape around the kitchen of the cafe. Next, we see the outdoor public seating that also acts as an informal amphitheater. The space directly connects to the landscape. The skits for waste awareness and importance of segregation can be conducted by community in this space. The stage is made from eco bricks. Eco bricks are PET bottles stuffed with non-recyclable waste that acts as one unit. The footing detail reduces concrete by having planar furniture waste infill, and the roof is cladded with coconut shells. A research paper pointed out coconut shell roofing cools the spaces underneath. Next, we move to the waste segregation facility. The vehicular access is made from RCA, recycled concrete aggregates mixed with disposable masks. Here we can observe the advantage of decentralization of waste. Since the waste incoming is at source, the quantity is less, hence it can be managed with odor controlling plants. The spaces near the landscape are for the waste workers to take a break as they segregate the waste. The public going along can watch as the bamboo blinders are up. The roof is oriented to get the north light in. The construction detail for the roof uses eco-friendly clay tiles. The truss of the building is supported on fly ash piers, and between two fly ash piers, the segregation facility shows a demonstration of a wall structure. In this case, beer bottle and clay bricks are used. Similarly, other iterations are also discussed that can use various reclaimed materials to build a simple wall structure. Not just the design, but the working in terms of logistics is also discussed. The informal settlements can be divided in 10 sectors, and we find out that 17 waste workers and their garbage cans are needed for door-to-door collection, since segregated waste by the residents cannot be expected. Children are encouraged to come to the ground to throw their waste, and a segregation strategy of 2 bin 1 bag can be used not only here but across the city. The timings of the waste workers and economic models also discussed. Next, in the organic garden, the composter housing modules are shaped so in order to bring the landscape inside. The repurposed and reclaimed timbers are painted red to depict a landmark. With commoning of the community, each of those sectors in the settlements can take turns to look after the organic garden weekly. A systemic approach is also needed to actually solve the issue of waste management. Systems changing not waste management but production and consumption as well. So a system is imagined here where each resident gets a monetary incentive to submit 10 completed eco bricks, thus bringing people incentive to collect their own waste, gain a profit by it, and completed eco brick can be used for public seating in the site. The Anganwadi shows the spaces for children and the studying area is oriented to bring in the north light. The world tree behind in the elevation also acts as an excellent space for the community. So looking at the existing waste management in the informal settlements, we can see the condition as compared to the reimagined waste management, the result of the alternative approach. These are the water supply calculations, the drainage, and finally the rainwater tank calculations. The rainwater tank is a conical feature as a symbol to show that the water for the organic garden is reused from the rainwater. Now to reimagine the city populated with similar interventions will be difficult because as seen in the survey, the practical issues faced are very big hurdles. This can be attempted to solve by introducing some urban strategies in the city. To make this imagination more feasible, the urban strategies that are proposed can be proposed in three levels of spaces in a manual format as an opportunity for the community to decide. The manual is imagined to be designed by the authorities, committees, BMC or the state as a mandate to reimagine the integration of hybridized programs. But to have flexibility, the manual provides various options for the typologies to exercise according to their choices. The elements from the inventory are taken as the beginning and different options are provided to them based on their root causes. If they do not have space, they can use any of these strategies at the typology level, having certain funding options or social strategies, and the architect can also select the design strategies based on the typology responses if necessary. Similarly, larger urban strategies can be proposed for larger two levels of centralized spaces. Hence, the reimagined city will be wonderful place where segregate which segregates waste at source with comforting public spaces. Everywhere in the city, compost will be readily available and people might start growing food everywhere. This is the alternative approach to waste management. That's all from my side. Thank you.